you are welcome. Those ones who were with us in our previous engagement, you are also welcome once again. Thank you for choosing Yaaka. Thank you for choosing us, and thank you for using your time well. Thank you for choosing learning this morning, because it seems to be a cold morning everywhere, but thank you for choosing learning this morning. I'm going to turn on my video so that you can see the person speaking to you. Then we can go straight away as we keep on welcoming others who are just joining. Thank you for joining. Our rules, we are going to be muting our microphones unless we are submitting to the class. If you're submitting to the class, it is okay to unmute it. But if you're not submitting to the class, you're not asking anything, you're not saying anything, we are going to mute them so that we don't disrupt the class with that background noise in our environments. Thank you. I'm going to turn on my video just shortly. I hope you can see me. I'm Teacher Lynndah. Thank you for joining. Going to be handling mathematics, and I hope I'm meeting the right class today, and I hope these are P6 students on the platform. Thank you so much for choosing this time for mathematics, all choosing this time to learn. I'm glad to meet you, and I hope it's going to be of advantage, and you'll not regret the time you've joined or the time you've spent in this session. Previously, in the previous engagements, we're looking at fractions, and we've so far done something great with fractions. And right now we are moving to also another step. And I know by the end of this period, we shall have looked at something broad in fractions. So we shall be confident enough to handle anything in fractions. In fractions, previously we looked at operation of fractions. We looked at addition of fractions. We looked at subtraction of fractions with both different and similar denominators. And we also went ahead and moved just a little step in multiplication, which I believe most of us did some revision in it right now. And I hope that at least right now we are confident enough to say that right now I can handle any numbers that may come on the way having operation on fractions. That is probably addition, subtraction, and subtraction and multiplication as well. Let me share my screen. I'll be sharing my screen shortly so that we can see something here that is very great that will help us during our session. So let us wait just a little second, just around 2, 3. I'll be sharing my screen and we shall be moving on. I hope at least right now, those ones who have just joined us, we're looking at the previous work. What we looked at, we handled fractions, and I hope today we shall handle something. We shall still cover some fraction, and by the end, we shall be in position to at least work out any numbers that regard fractions. Opportunity is going to be given to you to ask any question. Feel free to use our group for learning, basically, a WhatsApp group. If you meet any question about fraction and we've not looked at it, please type it in the group, put it in the group, take a picture of it in the group so that I can get your time and give you feedback on that question there. Anything regarding fractions, put it there so that we can exhaust it. You met a question somewhere, you have it in your book and it has always been challenging, make sure you put it in the group for further help. Is up. Would you like to say something? Omara, your hand is up. I think, yeah, he has put it down. I think he's not saying anything because I've not heard him speak. Okay.
No, they were showing me how to read.
Okay, so you can mute your microphone now. So I was still telling you, feel free to put anything in the group. My name is down here and mine, the contact is also here. Feel free to call and ask anything. And it's actually better if you put these questions in the group so that even our other colleagues can see them and they're able to be exposed. Those platforms, the WhatsApp platforms, are for learning basically, not for insulting any other. Thank you so much. Welcome. Thank you for choosing Yaaka. We offer free online classes as you see them there. I'll put more in the group. So just feel free to check there. It is our WhatsApp group for primary 6. And I hope this is the best class I'm meeting today. Primary 6. And today we are going to look at something very interesting, that is division of fractions, because it's what we're remaining with that group of operations, so that we can also see how to deal with them if they are put together. We've been handling them part by part. Before we handled addition, we handled subtraction, we looked at multiplication as well. We are going to use our chat for our work because those messages keep on removing others from they keep on taking our attention. So let us only use them if we need to use them. Let us send messages if we need to. Because as you keep on hitting, someone goes off, another goes off, another one goes off. They keep on giving attention to the messages. Let us concentrate so that we can use our time profitably. We are going to look at division of fractions because previously we've been looking at different operations. Let us also see division, how can it be used and how can we apply it in fractions. So from there, I know we shall stand a ground of handling all these operations if they are put in the same number as well. Let us see what we need to know. There are two ways we can divide fractions, namely, we have using the LCM, and this is the lowest common multiple, and we can also use the reciprocal. I know for the LCM, I know very many of us have an idea of how to do it. So I'm going to put my first interest at the reciprocal, and let us see something with the reciprocal. What do they mean if they say finding reciprocal? Reciprocal, this simply means turning a fraction, yes? When you turn a fraction upside down, that means you've got the reciprocal of that fraction. Whenever you turn the numerator to the bottom and the denominator to the top, that means you've found the fraction. Let us see how it is done. Note, a number multiplied by its reciprocal gives answer 1. Or if you don't say it that way, we can also say A product of a number and its reciprocal is 1, because we are aware that a product means the answer got after multiplying 2 or more numbers. So whenever you're using the multiplication sign, the answer you get will be the product. Let us see the time if we are talking about reciprocal. When you're talking about reciprocal, it means that you turn this number upside down. As you see this, I don't know, this one a baby, a doll. Maybe a doll. So for us to get the reciprocal, you can even try it out by the way, but don't break. You can try to get the reciprocal of yourself, but don't break at home and not now in this engagement. So when you're getting the reciprocal of this one here, we shall just turn that baby upside down. So you find that the head that was on the top is now down and the legs are up. You can try it in your own time. That's briefly about the reciprocal. Let us see if it's a fraction. If we have a quarter, how can we simply get the reciprocal of a quarter? Just turn a quarter upside down. So instead of 1 out of 4, it will become 4 out of 1. That is if you are turning it upside down. That is the reciprocal. Now, I want you to note something. As you turn these fractions upside down, make sure you write the digits well as they are supposed to be written. Don't say, oh, teacher said we turn them upside down and now the legs are looking down, so you fail to turn the 4 to its right position. You have to turn, these are figures that we all know that a 4 looks up, a 1 looks like this, so we need to write them properly and very well. That is about the reciprocals, and this is what really reciprocal means. You turn something upside down. If it's a number, that's how it will appear. If it is yourself, your hands will be will face up and the legs will also face down. So this is how you can try it and see the reciprocal of yourself and probably take a picture of it and have more time about yourself. You look at yourself, you admire yourself. Let us see an example here of how to do it. Because remember, in mathematics, we have the steps, we have what we require. Fine, now we have the idea. That idea will help us if we are looking at division. But when a question comes and they want you to find the reciprocal, there are 2 ways you can do it. Let us see this example here. Find the reciprocal of 2/3. I'm sure that someone knows the answer already, because it's a matter of turning that fraction upside down. Where is there someone is, let me see, anyone is hand up? Trust, can you tell me the reciprocal of 2/3? Yes, Sidin?
3 out of 2.
One more time.
Of 2.
3 out of 2. 3 out of 2. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3 out of 2. But mathematically, how do we get it? Now we've got the idea that it's a matter of turning this number upside down and we get it. But these are the steps you can use in case it comes in a question paper. And remember, you will have to work for the marks there, maybe 2 marks. You will have to work for them. But how do we deal with them? How do we get them? You putting 3 out of 2, 3 out of 2 is the correct answer. That's true. But will the examiner really be happy with you? Will be like, hey, this girl in P6, this boy is in P6 and he cannot even put 2 steps here. Let us see the steps taken. How to handle this number here. One thing we do, we let the reciprocal be any letter. I chose R. So after choosing it to be any letter, you multiply, because remember what we said, that when you multiply the fraction by its reciprocal, you get answer 1. That will help you form the first equation there. So you will have 2/3 times R is equivalent to 1. So from there, we can now deal with it. How can we deal with error? We shall make error a fraction as well, because any whole number can be made a fraction by giving it denominator 1. So when for you to make error a fraction, you give it denominator 1. Remember the rules of multiplication. Numerators are multiplied alone and denominators are multiplied alone. So you can also apply that. So still we can apply that one as our other step. So in this step here, you show that you are multiplying the numerators alone and the denominators alone. And when you multiply 2 times r out of 3 times 1, it is equivalent to 1. The answer will be 1. So now we can multiply. When you multiply a letter by any number, you will always get that number with that letter. Let us see here more examples. So when you multiply, because we've all worked out area, we've tried out area basically. When you find that you have 2 times centimeter, when you multiply 2 times centimeter, you'll get 2 centimeter. The same applies to when you're multiplying a number times any letter or any unknown. So you get that number plus that unknown. Like we cannot say centimeter 2, because it looks a little bit funny for us to say centimeter 2. It's the same thing we cannot do, although you are starting with r times 2. Although you're starting with r times 2, it is still not applicable for you to say 2r. Like you cannot say, I counted the girls and I have girls 2. There is a way it sounds funny and they'll be like, really? This one in P6? So that's the same thing we apply when we are doing this work here. Then like in the real life, as you're counting, as you're saying that I went to the shop and bought 2 kilograms of rice, and you're not saying I went to the shop and bought kilograms 2 of rice. The same thing is applied here when we are doing this work here. So from here, after multiplying this, so when we multiply 2 times r, we shall get 2r out of 3. That is equivalent to 1. So when we realize that 2 out of r, 2r out of 3 is equivalent to 1. So the question comes, how are we going to get the value of r? Because we need to get it. R is our reciprocal. So what we do, we make this whole number here a fraction. We make 1 a fraction as well by giving it denominator 1. So when we give 1 a denominator, yes, so we can apply it, we can say this 2r times 1, and that is the one I think we always refer to as cross multiplication. But we don't put it here, we don't put the crosses here, we just put it in brackets. We multiply 2r times 1 equivalent to 3 times 1. Because when you multiply this one by the denominator, each numerator by the denominator at the opposite side. So you have 2r times 1 is equivalent to 3 times 1. 2r times 1, we shall get 2r, which is equivalent to 3. So for you to remain with only r, We shall divide both sides by 2, and this is what will be. So we shall divide both sides by 2. And remember, when you divide by 2, you will get 1. When you divide 2 by 2, you will also get 1. But remember, we are interested in this fraction here that we are sure of. Yes? So after removing this 2, after dividing by 2, after dividing both sides by 2, we shall remain with r here. So we shall have r, and at the other side, it will be equivalent to 3 out of 2. Don't mind about dividing this one here, because we already know. Remember, that's why when we are learning reciprocal, we start by knowing the answer. It helps us at the end, because you may be tempted to again say, no, let me change this one to a mixed fraction. Don't be tempted. That's why we start by knowing the answer, and then we look for how to get that answer there. So for this case here, since we are aware that the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3 out of 2, we don't need to do anything to this one here. So we shall just conclude and say R is equal to 3 out of 2. Therefore, the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3 out of 2. That is the first way of getting the reciprocal. That is the first method of getting the reciprocal. Then let us see, if someone does not use all that, let us see it in the next example. What else, how else can this person get? Still we have, what is the reciprocal of 2/3? We let the reciprocal be any letter, that is Q. By this time, when you get the reciprocal be any letter, yes, we shall still use the same equation that we used before. So we shall say, Nasali, mute your microphone if you're not submitting to the group. Nasali, mute your microphone, please. Good. So from here still, you go back to the same equation that says any number or any fraction multiplied by its reciprocal, it gives you answer 1. After knowing that, still you will say the reciprocal, because we've let the reciprocal be a letter that is Q, we shall say Q times 2/3 equals to 1. So what do we do? Since we know that, because the reciprocal, you will always know it before even working out. We are aware that the reciprocal of 2/3 is 3 out of 2. So this is what will happen. So we shall say Q times the 2/3, that is the original fraction, times the one we know that we know as the reciprocal, that is 3 out of 2, is equivalent to 1 times 3 out of 2, the one that we are aware of that it is the reciprocal. So after doing this, we can still, this is what will happen. We shall have here, come here, we can, like something, I want to show you something here. So when you have 2/3 times 3 out of 2, because this is the fraction, we know that this is the reciprocal we have. So what we do, we can cancel out the 2's from here. We can divide the 2 by this 2 here. It will give you 1. And this one will also give you 1. When we still divide this 3 by the 3 here, we shall remain with a 1 and a 1. So when you multiply 1 times 1, you will get 1. Out of 1 times 1, you will still get 1. And then we have, remember we had a Q here. We had a Q here times this 1 out of 1 is equivalent to 1 times 3 out of 2. Then what do we need to know? Remember, any whole number can be made a fraction by giving it denominator 1. So this one here, assuming that we've given it a denominator, it will be 1 out of 1 times the 3 out of 2. So here you will find that when you multiply q times 1, you will get q. When you multiply 1 time, this is equal to, when you multiply 1 times 3, you get 3. 1 times 2, still you get 2. This is how we came up with this answer here. And I hope someone has picked something. So you choose which method can I use to get the reciprocal of the given fraction, so that you can again apply it when you're looking for them. You can apply it when you are working out, when you're looking for them, when you're dividing. Then let us see some example here again. In case you're given a mixed fraction, what happens? Let's assume you have 2 whole numbers, 2 fifths. When you have 2 whole numbers, 2 fifths. Still, when you're finding the reciprocal of such a fraction, you let the reciprocal be n letter. And b letter b, b times this one here. Now for the case of this fraction here, in the first step, you change it straight away to an improper fraction. So you will say 5 times 2, we get 10. Plus 2, we shall get 12. So you get b times 12 out of the original denominator, that is 5, is equivalent to 1. So after doing this, now you will say,
you're not.
So after getting this, you will come. Bashir, mute your microphone. Thank you for joining. Bashir.
Yes, teacher.
Watswa,
Yes, teacher.
mute your microphone. Mute your microphone as well.
That I put my microphone over to well.
Mute it so that we don't hear the background noise.
Yes, teacher.
Rosie, remove what you've done on my screen. So I think you're doing that very fast.
Yes, teacher.
Mute your microphone very fast because the noise is not doing as well. So when you have such a fraction, so we can still apply the same here. What we did here is what we can apply. So what we do, we can get our letter B times, Nisi, remove what you've done on my screen. Our letter B times this fraction here, the original fraction, which is 12 out of 5. Okello, thank you for joining. Mute your microphone.
Thank you, thank you. Trevor, Bina.
Yeah, mute your microphone. Thank you for joining.
Oh, you're welcome.
So you get this fraction here. You get the fraction that is 12 out of 5. Now we multiply it, but by what we are sure of that it is the reciprocal. So we multiply it by the opposite of this fraction, that is 5 out of 12. So we shall say times 5 out of 12. What we do this side before the equal signs, we also do it this side, equals to 1 times 5. Let me write my 5 again. It has not been so clear today. 5 out of 12. So the moment you have it again like this, you just come here. You can come here. We can divide these 5s by 5. It goes with this 5. It will give you 1, 1. Then 12, and this 12 will give you still 1 and 1. So you remain with B equaling to 5. 1 times 5, you get 5 out of, still 12 times 1, you get 12. So the reciprocal of this fraction here is 5 out of 12. So don't be so much disturbed when you find a mixed fraction and you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. When the teacher was teaching us, she only told us about proper fractions, improper fractions. Now just see what the Lord has brought at the front. So you find that you're already disappointed. Don't be disappointed. I hope now we all have ideas about this. Let us see something else here. After learning how to get the reciprocal, we shall try out this. I'm going to share this immediately in our group. You're going to try to find the reciprocal of these fractions here. You're going to try to find the reciprocal of those fractions there. I'll be glad to receive feedback. I'll be glad to at least respond to your issues there. Jesse, I'll send the work. After this engagement, I'll be sending the work in the WhatsApp group. So don't mind about copying right now. You're going to have enough time to copy the work here.
Thank you. But
just mind about understanding it right now.
Yes, I have an inquiry. Can I ask a little?
Yes, please.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, it's okay.
It's these questions are given us. Do we do them in our books, then take a picture and then like send on the group or something, or we just give you the answers?
You can work out because it's better. You know, mathematics, we look at the steps someone has used because they earn you marks. So when I don't see your steps, I may not be in position to correct you where you've done any mistake, where you've messed up, or to at least say appraise you for the good you've done. So I think you take a picture of your work so that I can really see that this person was in position to use this method here. He used these steps, missed out a step here, and she needs to do this. So that's the feedback I always want to give you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll be putting my email there. You can either send it in on my email or put it in the WhatsApp group.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I want us to apply also this idea of the reciprocals, dividing the following fractions. Because the interest was division of fractions, but we ended up looking at the reciprocal. Now I want us to see how we can apply this. When you are dividing fractions, the reason as to why we looked at the reciprocal, I want to show you something very great, and I hope you will be in position to relate that too. When we have divide 4 by a third, the first thing, we get the reciprocal of a third. Yes? When you get the reciprocal of a third, change the division sign to a multiplication sign. Those are the steps that we follow. Get the reciprocal of a third, then change the division sign to a multiplication sign. So after changing it, this is how it will appear. When you change the sign, the moment you change the sign, you change the fraction, the divisor, the fraction you're using to divide the given number, it's reciprocal. Yes? And previously, we learned how to deal with these whole numbers here. Remember, a whole number. Bella, can you hear me right now? Jesse, can you hear me?
Madam, I can hear you clearly.
Okay. George, can you hear me? Okay, hello, George, can you hear me? Okay, let me hope they can hear me as well. So when you change the reciprocal, still remember what we learned how to deal with these whole numbers here. You give it denominator 1 to make it a fraction so that you can apply the rules of fractions. So here, how did it become this? So what we did, let me first show you something here. What we did here, if you have a whole number that is 4 times 3 out of 1, after getting the reciprocal, you make 4 a fraction as well, so it will be 4 out of 1. You get the reciprocal, when you make 4 a fraction, then you apply the rule of multiplication of fractions. Numerators
Mommy. Mommy.
those ones who have just...
Teacher, we can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
And now we can hear you.
Yeah, trust it was just my network a little bit disturbing, but I'm back. Let me share again my screen so that we can still learn something from here.
Yes.
I was showing you how how we came up with this step here. So after multiplying, we have 4 times 3, we get
12.
So when we multiply 4 times 3, we get 12 out of 1, which is the same as 12. And previously, I showed you how to get this step here, how we came up with this step here. We made 4 a whole number, so we multiplied each. We multiplied the numerators alone and the denominators alone to come up with this step here. So it gives you 12 out of 1, which is the same as 12. Let us see it in another example here. Let us check this other example here. This is our example 2. Divide 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 divide by 8. So the other one, we were looking at a whole number being divided by a fraction. Now we are looking at a fraction being divided by a whole number. So the steps still will not change. We make the whole number a fraction. And we've said that how do we make it a fraction? By giving it the So we shall have 4 and change the multiplication sign. It's here. We change, sorry, it is supposed to be to change the division sign into multiplication sign. I'll put that one right later on. Then another thing we should note, if such a question can also be asked in this form, yes? They can ask it as divide 4 out of 5 by 8, or they may ask you, how many 4/5 are in 8? So it can be asked in some other way. So let us see the step. Then we can work out after changing it to a fraction. We change after getting the reciprocal of 8 out of 1, that is 1 out of 8. So when we multiply the numerators alone, oh, sorry, I'm breaking, but let me hope right now you can at least hear me very well. When we multiply the numerators alone and the denominators alone, so this is what we come up with. So we shall have, when we look at the numerators alone, the numerators are 4 and 1 out of 5 times 8. So when we are multiplying the numerators alone, we shall have 4 times 1 giving us 4, out of 5 times 8 giving us 40. So this is how it will look like. Now, when you look at 4 out of 40, it can be reduced. So we looked at also reducing. So here we choose a number. People putting a lot of messages in the chat, you're distracting others. Unless it's a question, then I can tolerate that. But if it's not a question, I'll not tolerate it. So what we do here, we reduce this. We can divide this by 4, all by 2. We can start by 2 because 2 divides both. So we divide 4 by 2, even 40 by 2. So when you divide 4 by 2, we shall get 2. Out of 40 divided by 2, we shall get 20. But still, this number can be still divided. So we can again use 2 by 2. We are trying to reduce this fraction here. And the only way we can reduce it is dividing it by different numbers. By a number, what you should know in this case, if you use a digit to divide a numerator, it should be the same digit you use for the denominator. So when you divide 2 times 2, 2 divided by 2, you will get 1. Out of 20 divided by 2, you will get 10. And that's how we came up with this answer here. But remember, different people may also attempt it differently. Some other person may...
I can't hear you.
What about now? Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, teacher, you are clear.
Okay. So for this case, some others may think about it differently. So someone may say, no, me, I'll not do all this. I'll not do all that. Let me just come and divide by this 4 here. By 4, I'll get 1. 40 divided by 4, I'll get 10. So someone may just think about it differently and they will come up with the same answer as the other one who went through using 2, 2, 2. So it depends on your choice there. So I'm going to still, there is some work you're going to go through. I'm not going to go through it right now. Unless you have a question about it, then I'll make sure I respond to it. I'll make sure I respond to it if you have a question. It is here. You're going to go through it fraction by fraction. You'll just go through it and attempt the questions. If you meet a challenge, you will ask, you'll contact me, you'll put in the group, you put them in the group so that we can see where you meet a challenge, so that I can really help you where you meet any challenge. This is a piece of work you'll go through. It was worked out and you will work out the following activity. When you meet a challenge, make sure you inform me. You can write in the group. I'll be listening to those audios in case you meet a challenge. I'll be reading those messages so that I can give you feedback as well. Otherwise, thank you for joining this class today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for giving this time to your studies. May the good Lord bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you, teacher.
Thank you for
You're
teaching us.
welcome.
Bye. Participate.
Bye.
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 I say ooh.
Bye, bye.
Bye. Have a nice day. Let me put the work in the group, visit the group right now. Thank you so much for attending.
Bye.